praying for LA and standing with you. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., and welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. It's good to be back on live with you at KBLA. I want to say that this is a fairly amazing day. President Joe Biden has just delivered his final foreign policy speech. He has a little less than 7 days to remain president of the United States. In this hour, we're going to talk about some of Joe Biden's achievements, some of his accomplishments, some of his shortcomings. We're also going to take a look at what's ahead. And I know no one better qualified than my guest today, Dr. Attorney Barbara Arnwine. I say doctor because she's a Juris Doctorate lawyer. Barbara's my guest tonight on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. She's a dynamic personality and a major leader in the resistance movement in the era of Donald Trump. Barbara Arnwine is the president and founder of the Transformative Justice Coalition, is internationally renowned for contributions on critical justice issues, including the passage of the landmark Civil Rights Act of 1991 and the 2006 reauthorization of provisions of the Voting Rights Act. She is the board vice chair of the National Coalition to Abolish the Death Penalty and serves on the board of directors for Mom Rising and Independent Sector. Arnwine's work include women's rights, immigrant rights, judicial diversity, criminal justice reform, racial profiling, healthcare disparities, and LGBTQ rights. A prominent leader in the civil rights and human rights community, she continues to fight for the preservation of affirmative action and diversity programs. She has received numerous national and regional and local awards. In 2015, Arnwine received the prestigious Charles Hamilton Houston Medallion Award, along with co-honorees Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She received the Vince Monroe Townsend Jr. Legends Award and the Women's Lawyers Division's Walking the Walk, Women Lawyers Still Making It Happen Award in 2014. In 2013, she received the Feminist Majority Foundation's Fearless Trailblazer Award, and during the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation's 2013 Annual Legislative Conference, the CBC, the women members of the CBC and the Sojourner Truth Legacy Project awarded Ms. Arnwine with the Sojourner Truth Woman of Truth Award. Barbara Arnwine, welcome back to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you so much. It's a great honor to be here. Thank you for all that you do to make sure people are educated and aware of how they can make a difference in these times.
Barbara Arnwine is one of the fiercest fighters in our nation today. I am so happy that you are with us. There's so much ground that we have to cover, but I want to start with your reflections on the Biden administration.
It's an interesting set of reflections. You know, I think that the administration overall did a good job. I think that there were many things they left unfinished that they called out or that they did at the last minute and couldn't follow through. I mean, think about it, everybody. They just in the last couple of days, the DOJ did something major. They issued a report on the Tulsa massacre of 1921, talking about the culpability of the police and all kinds of major issues. And remember that he went to Tulsa for the 100th anniversary 4 years ago. 3 years ago. And he could have and should have gotten that report done earlier, because then they could have said something to the state of Oklahoma about what they needed to do to dispense justice. But I'm glad to see the report, because we know it would never happen under the incoming administration. But I'm very sad that it does not yield the justice that the survivors deserve. Mother Fletcher, Mother Randall. I just want to send love to them in this moment, because I know that they have fought for over 100 years for justice. And I know they're feeling good to see that report, but it should have come with some kind of teeth.
In the 2 minutes that we have before we come forward, Attorney Arnwine, what is it that the Trump administration can do to follow up on the report? Or in your estimation, given your understanding of these processes, is it possible that they probably will just push it under the rug?
My fear is that they will do the latter, but what they ought to do is to push the governor, push the mayor of Tulsa, push the governor of Oklahoma, push the state legislature to give redress. There's nothing to impede the state from redressing this injustice, which still impacts people of color in Greenwood, in Tulsa, throughout Oklahoma, throughout this country. We're all impacted by that horrible massacre that has never, ever, ever been compensated. I wish that Biden, at the minimum, before he gets out, will do some major statement on reparations. I know you're looking at me like, am I dreaming? But he ought to. He ought to say something about reparations. He should have done an official commission of the White House. He should have while he was in office. But at least he should give a statement recognizing that reparations for Tulsa are in order, reparations for so many other, misdeeds and for slavery and Jim Crow and the present effects of all of that on all of us. I think he could have done something. And that's, another thing that he ought to do. It takes courage, right, to lead. And I say that if you can't lead, don't try to, be courageous, be bold. This is your final moments. What's your legacy? The other thing I really hate that they did not follow up on was that $12 billion that they recognized was stolen by 14 states from HBCUs. $12 billion. Do you know what that could mean to all the HBCUs in those 12 states? And instead, those 12 states, what are they doing? Most of them are running around dismantling their DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, and trying to close their HBCUs under, there's problems, folks. He could have, his administration should have made sure they released that report, I believe in 2023. They should have stayed on it. They should have made those people be accountable.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We'll come back, and when we come forward, we'll be with attorney Barbara Arnwine, one of our fiercest fighters in the resistance.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Be all right.
KBLA Talk 1580 is amplifying Black voices and spotlighting our untold stories. I'm Dominique DePrima. Join me Thursday from 6 to 9 a.m. as we broadcast live from Perry's Joint on Lincoln Avenue in Altadena, covering the individuals and families impacted by the Altadena Eaton fire. Hear from community leaders and those who have suffered losses that must not be forgotten. Together, we can help them rebuild and recover. Together, we are LA Strong, LA United, with your friends at KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you facing an unexpected financial emergency? You need WeFixMoney.com. WeFixMoney.com could help you get up to $3,000 fast. WeFixMoney.com is free to use, available 24/7, and has an A rating with the Better Business Bureau. Go to the name you trust, WeFixMoney.com. If you need emergency cash up to $3,000 for bills or anything else, type WeFixMoney.com directly in your browser. That's WeFixMoney.com.
Here they come, y'all. Here they come. Here they come, y'all. Here they come.
Get out the way. Ooh.
First things first with Dominique DePrima at 6 a.m. Tavis Smiley at 9 a.m. Truth Time with Dr. Cornell West and Nina Turner at 12 noon. Here they come, y'all. Here they come. Here they come, y'all. Here they come.
Get out the way. Get out the way. Get out the way.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show at 1 p.m. The D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show at 2 p.m. A More Perfect Union with Dr. Nee Quarterly Corte at 4 p.m. Here they come, y'all. Here they come. Here they come, y'all. Here they come.
Get out the way. Get out the way. Get out the way.
Tune in weekdays from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. for the talk of the town. Only on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about. Here they come, y'all. Here they come.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., and welcome back to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest is attorney Barbara Arnwine. She's a constitutional scholar. She's been on the battlefield fighting for our rights from Tulsa, Oklahoma, to Chicago, Illinois, to Washington, D.C., to the Deep South. Barbara, welcome back to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you.
Barbara, let me ask you a question, two-part question. The first part is, share with us your thoughts on the survivors of Tulsa. And then I'd like to hear your thoughts on the waning hours, less than a week of Joe Biden. What can he do?
You know, I have been to Tulsa several times for court hearings, for rallies, in support of the Tulsa survivors and in support of the people of Tulsa. Do people realize when we talk about, Jesse, think about this. People don't understand that when we talk about making sure that you don't ban black books, that you don't ban Black history. Do you know that in Tulsa, they banned the teaching for decades about the Mexican? I'm serious. I'm serious. I have spoken with people in their 50s who were educated, lived in Tulsa, never were taught about it until the movement resurfaced, until Charles Ogletree, God bless his soul, and so many others started saying something has to be done about this horrific injustice. And I have sat across and been able to hug and talk with Mother Randall and Mother Fletcher and Uncle Red before he passed, and others who have been fighting and leading this fight for justice. I want to thank, Attorney Demario Solomon Simmons,
Yes.
and the law firms that have been, working with him for everything that they've done to try to really make sure that there's justice here. And I think that, we are blessed that we have had, these kinds of advocates. So many people see injustice and they run, right? They see injustice and they say, well, I don't want to be part of that anymore. Or they say, I'm just going to, blind myself to that injustice. But give credit to the Tulsa community, to the Tulsa Black community in particular, that it will not let go. It's demanding that something be done. What do they say? The blood cries out from the ground?
Yes, it does.
Literally.
Yes, it does.
The blood is crying out from the ground, saying, there has to be redress here. I wish, like I said, that this administration had done more, in that regard, to push. I recognize the problem is Oklahoma. I recognize the problem is Tulsa. I recognize the problem is the Supreme Court and the courts of Oklahoma that did not grant the relief that should have been granted. There's no reason why it wasn't granted. I just think that there's, so much work to be here. But I hope everybody listening will remember this fight and will commit to being part of it. Go to the, you can, Greenwood Foundation is out there and they are doing amazing work. And please, please become part of the fight. Because I have nothing but love for the people of Tulsa and Greenwood.
Your thoughts about the final 6.5 days of the Biden administration?
Come on now. I done already said they should have done something to make these people pay back that $12 billion they stole from the Black HBCUs. Come on. How do you allow them to get away with that? You don't just send them a letter saying you have stolen money and you ought to do something about it. There should have been enforcement, right? So I'm not happy about that whatsoever. But on these last days, where's the pardons? Come on now. I'm talking to somebody who should be pardoned. I'm talking, I know Kareem Brown. former Congresswoman. She deserves a pardon.
Yes, she does.
There's so many people, all these people who are in jail for having, these nonviolent offenses, all these people in jail for having, really small amounts of drugs or whatever. I mean, it's just so unjust. I get so angry every time I look at this, decriminalization movement for marijuana, and I realize that there are still brothers and sisters in jail suffering from that. And when I realize there's that the whole industry has become whitenized, so that they can make profits, the vulture, what they call vulture, like the bird, the vulture, capitalism that always feeds on the worst elements of of our society and uses it against the very people who have already been victimized. I mean, this is just insane. But I do think that he should issue massive pardons. That doesn't mean just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He needs to issue your pardon, that for Corrine Brown, and that for Leonard Peltier, and he needs to issue at least another couple thousand pardons.
Let me add to that, because interestingly enough, my guest on this show on this coming Wednesday is going to be Michael Cohen.
All right now.
We spoke for a good hour today, and he's making
Yes.
a last-minute appeal to the Biden administration to grant him a full, absolute, complete, unconditional pardon,
Yes.
because he's paid his debt to society. Michael Cohen, who single-handedly challenged Donald Trump, is now seeking the pardon from the President of the United States, Joe Biden, before he leaves office. But as you know, there are literally millions of men and women who don't have a name like Jesse Jackson Jr. They don't have a name like Michael Cohen. They don't have a name like Corrine Brown, who've just kind of moved back into our society without the protection that they need to remove the idea of felonization from their head. So I'm very, very excited about this conversation I'm going to have with Michael Cohen to talk about the final 4 days, I guess it will be, or 5 days of the Biden administration at that time. But you've mentioned, thousands of people need this reprieve, and they need this redress and the restoration of their rights in our society. Joe Biden can actually do that. Is that correct, Barbara?
That's absolutely correct.
Doesn't need the Congress, doesn't need the courts. He can do it on his own.
Yes. And what I need him to do is to, what I need the president to do very badly is that not only do we need him to issue these pardons, but he needs to not listen to the bad counsel he's getting from some of his own people who are telling him not to do the preemptive pardons. You better preempt all these people.
Absolutely.
I would take that entire Kash Patel list. Kash Patel is one of the nominees. He's been nominated to become the FBI director. He is a problem, and he has horrific beliefs, but he has published publicly his enemies list of people he wants to arrest, people he wants to imprison, and it is quite a number of people. And what I am saying is, why the heck are we talking about, is this the right thing to do? Go ahead and issue a preemptive pardon. Listen, folks who think they don't need it, let them say they don't want it, that they won't take it, but at least issue it. I mean,
that's their right. That's their right under a case called United States versus Wilson. They can say no.
Right.
But your point is he should issue them.
Right. And the problem is,
I agree with that.
and the problem is that he has to, because what people don't understand is not only injustice for those people to be persecuted by this maniac, because that's what he is. Kash Patel, when you read all his statements, this is not a sane man, in my opinion. And so what I believe is that they don't understand that it's not fair for us to have to deal with what we're going to deal with in this administration, fighting all the horrible policies they're going to have, and at the same time be defending 100 people from who should never be prosecuted. Do you understand how how hard it is for us to do the work that has to be done already. And then you're asking us to divide our attention by having to defend people from in court, from being imprisoned. Come on, President Biden, if you can hear me, people who know him, who are able to talk to him, say, ignore your people, immediately issue preemptive pardons. Let people do what they do.
I have a close friend who owns a pardon from Abraham Lincoln.
Uh-oh.
Abraham Lincoln pardoned an American citizen on a napkin. And on the napkin, he said, "Let the boy be pardoned." Signed it Abraham Lincoln. And that's all that has to happen in that particular case. Now, with that said, Barbara, I want to bring us all the way forward.
Yes.
Martin Luther King's birthday this year is being commemorated. Of course, the actual birthday is Wednesday, but it's being commemorated on the same day as Donald Trump is being inaugurated. Your thoughts on Martin Luther King Jr., as well as your thoughts on the irony of that. And once we get finished with that, we're going to go forward into what we can expect from the Trump administration. Barbara, your thoughts on Martin Luther King Jr.?
God has a sense of humor. Let's just that these two events are happening on the same day. That we're watching. This is like swearing in Andrew Johnson, who took over after the Lincoln assassination, who came in and was as anti-Black as he could be. Who did everything possible to destroy Black progress.
Pardon the slaveholders. Pardon the slaveholders. He pardoned the Confederacy. He gave full pardons to people who owned slaves, full pardons to people who seceded from the Union. We're asking for a few pardons over here for people who paid their debt to society, a few preemptive pardons. But then we get to this election that has rendered a result that his birthday, Martin Luther King Jr.'s, comes together with the inauguration of Andrew Jackson 2.0.
Right. And people, please read about Andrew Johnson. I mean, he was horrific. He fought the Freedmen's Bureau. He tried to reverse the order that gave land to the former, slaves in South Carolina, Georgia, all these other people that General Sherman had issued. People, when you hear this talk about 40 acres and a mule, and you say, "Oh, that's just some historical nonsense," it was an actual proposal, and you gotta. And he said that he didn't want to do none of this, nothing justice for Black folks, because it would be what, folks? Reverse discrimination against whites. That's what he wrote.
Wow.
Back in the 1860s. So people got to understand the sickness. And we're talking about a president coming in who's already talking about what? Pardoning the insurrectionists for January 6th. And we know what they've done. We know the violence, just the horrific, desecration of our capital. People running around with what? Confederate flags, showing you their white supremacist orientation. That this was, I want people to understand what's at stake, because some people say, "Oh, well, Donald Trump, he's just talking." Honey, he's serious. He's serious. They are already dismantling DEI programs. I want to give a big shout out to two companies while I'm at it. A big shout out to Costco and a big shout out to Apple, because Costco has said their DEI program's going nowhere. And Apple's board of directors just voted to recommend that their shareholders defeat an effort to dismantle their DEI programs, that they're going to stand firm. Folks, Walmart, McDonald's, and all these other companies that have run away from their DEI programs, I got something to say. It's called no DEI, don't buy. No DEI, no buy. That's the response. We got to go back to our roots, folks. This movement didn't get here because we sat around trying to be nice, because we sent our, quote, Black emissaries to try to, cajole very, very steadfast, white supremacists and to doing the right thing for us. We got here because people like Rosa Parks led a boycott. We got here because people took their economic power and used it the right way. We're going to have to do more in the next 4 years than we've done ever. And so people don't be sitting around thinking that there's nothing I can do, because you got everybody that I know spends at least a dime. At least a dime a week, right?
Barbara, we have about 2 minutes before we come forward.
Yes.
Now that we're through this King period, about another week, and then Donald Trump, with the 2 minutes that we have coming forward, give us some sense. Now I've just been informed I have about 1 minute, and then we'll pick up on it after the break. But give us some sense in 1 minute of what you think the dangers of the Trump administration are. We'll build on that when we come forward. But right now we have 1 minute. Barbara?
I think they're going to destroy educational equity. I think they're going to destroy our economic justice roles. I think they're going to manifest and really perpetuate a lot of hate. And I'm worried about every one of those things. I think that we have to stand firm, and that they're going to really try to do distracting things, but we can't, as a Black people, be distracted. We got to be focused. We got to fight. Don't be talking about you're going to go and sleep for the next 4 years. You can't, because they're not going to let you.
On the table, I believe, Brown versus the Board of Education, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of
1965,
public accommodations. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. When we come forward, we'll be with attorney Barbara Arnwine.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 things you should know from BIN News. Southern California Edison is being sued over claims its electrical equipment is responsible for starting one of the wildfires in the Los Angeles area. Investigators are examining the site, now off limits. The New Hampshire Supreme Court rejected a lawsuit against white supremacist group NSC 13, ruling 4-0 that their 2022 Keep New England White banner in Portsmouth did not violate the Civil Rights Act, citing free speech protections. Prominent Black Granada civil rights attorney Carlos Moore has been suspended from practicing law in Mississippi for 1 year. The suspension, issued December 31st, follows an investigation revealing he misdirected $300,000 from a settlement. And Orlando, Florida is celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. this week, starting with a vigil, march, and interfaith service at Shiloh Baptist Church. The city has officially proclaimed this week Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Holiday Week. I'm Amber Payton on the Black Information Network, your home for Black News First.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. At Blindster, we offer custom-made faux wood and real wood blinds and shutters, cellular shades, Roman shades, bamboo shades, exterior shades, and more, all at factory direct prices. Don't pay too much for new blinds. Go to Blindster.com.
Lowe's knows it's easier to make the right calls when you have the right team. Download the Lowe's app to get their home improvement playbook in your hands so you can get their team's expertise anytime.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers and Clippers have home games tonight after a pause in their schedule because of the wildfires in LA County. The Lakers had 2 games postponed. The Clippers had 1. The Lakers are at home against San Antonio at Crypto.com. The Clippers are at home against Miami at the Intuit Dome in Inglewood. We'll let you know tomorrow morning which LA team had the highest attendance. No change in the NCAA women's basketball rankings. For the 8th straight week, undefeated UCLA remains number 1 in the country. UCLA is 16-0. USC is number 4. The Trojans are 16-1. Reports out of Pittsburgh indicate that Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin, the dean of NFL head coaches, will return for a 19th season in 2025. Tomlin, one of 4 black head coaches in the NFL, has never had a losing season with the Steelers. The Steelers were eliminated by Baltimore Saturday in the first round of the AFC playoffs. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about. Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, aka the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
We gon' be alright. KBLA Talk 1580 is amplifying Black voices and spotlighting our untold stories. I'm Dominique DePrima. Join me Thursday from 6 to 9 a.m. as we broadcast live from Perry's Joint on Lincoln Avenue in Altadena, covering the individuals and families impacted by the Altadena Eaton fire. Hear from community leaders and those who have suffered losses that must not be forgotten. Together, we can help them rebuild and recover. Together, we are LA Strong, LA United, with your friends at KBLA Talk 1580.
I don't even know where to start with health insurance. Do I just call a hospital and ask them?
Look up Covered California. That's their whole deal, making it easier to get and pay for health insurance.
Okay, but can I afford it?
Yes. They work with a bunch of health insurance companies. I pay something like $10 a month, and it's actually really good coverage.
Wait, what? How did I not know this?
You just needed to know who to ask.
If you've got questions, Covered California can help every step of the way. Enroll by January 31st. Covered California. This way to health insurance.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., and welcome back to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest is attorney Barbara Arnwine. Barbara, before the break, we talked about the attack potentially on Brown versus the Board of Education, the Civil Rights Act of 1964-65, Voting Rights Act, subsequent public accommodations legislation. We got a sense of it in the court striking down Roe v. Wade and Donald Trump's desire to appoint even more federal judges and more Supreme Court justices in a second Trump term. Are we looking at, as you aptly said during your last time on this program, during this redemption period, these redeemers trying to reclaim their July 4th, 1776 legacy, trying to reclaim what they believed America should be? During the second redemption period, are we looking at the end of second Reconstruction? I can't hear Barbara. Barbara, I think you're still muted.
Hi, I'm sorry. I think that the Reconstruction era will never, ever, stop as long as we fight for it, right? It's the redemption era. What it did was it stopped Reconstruction in its face. It stopped all the federal troops that were in the South protecting Black men and women in our voting rights. Remember, there was something called the 15th Amendment in 1870. There was the Electoral Act that allowed for Black men to vote. And basically, during that period of redemption, the right to vote for African-American men just dissipated. It was destroyed state by state by state by state because the federal troops weren't there to enforce it. To this day in the South, there's a hatred, and I think you might have seen it, Jesse. There's a hatred to Black men carrying arms. That all goes back to the fact that during the Civil War, at the end of the war, the majority of the Union troops were Black men. And they still to this day have a hatred of that period of history. The same kind of birth of a nation madness that we hear. One thing that is consistent with the redemption period is that during that period the elites, the hierarchical elites used white elites used every dime they could to convince white people that they were white, and to convince them that they should look down upon Black people. because in the immediate aftermath of the Civil War, whites and blacks were forming unions together. Whites and blacks were
free state of Jones. A kind of free state of Jones. A kind of free state of Jones.
Yes, yes. And
they were trying to work together.
Exactly. And they decided that that the only way you could stop that kind of unity for economic justice was to create a division between the races. And so they taught whites, I mean, repeatedly, how whites could become white and how all whites were white. Because remember, up until that period, people from Italy, people from Spain, people were treated differently than people from England. People from Germany were treated differently. People from Sweden. I mean, you know, the white race was a little bit, you know, kind of like fractured around its identity, but it came together strong after after the Civil War, during the redemption period, because that's all it was about. That's where you get Birth of a Nation. That's where you get, the destruction of Reconstruction, the destruction of the all the, the 15th Amendment just goes dormant. The 14th Amendment is turned on its head to be some kind of economic issue for corporations and having nothing to do with racial justice. You have, the incredibly horrible, cases that just, basically says it's okay. The Cruikshank case that basically after, the massacre and slaughter of Black politicians in Louisiana, that basically says, oh, too bad. That's just, it wasn't state action, even though the police were quite involved, but it wasn't state action. So they create this new doctrine to insulate, private parties and others from being held accountable. So, folks, we are looking at a return because already you got 27, 27 state attorney generals out there saying that they want to invalidate the Voting Rights Act. But if people think this is only about race, let me be clear. What else do they want to invalidate? The Americans Disabilities Act. They want to get rid of the ADA. They don't want people with disabilities to have rights. What else do they want to get rid of? They want to get rid of, of our fair housing laws. But you know what they have targeted? Environmental justice laws. One of the things that was true of the Johnson era and that redemption era was a couple, robber barons come out of that era. And we're talking about
the first oligarchs.
Right.
The people with the big mansion in Asheville, North Carolina, with the Gettys, the Vanderbilts,
the robber barons,
right? Unprecedented wealth in the hands of a few.
And abusive, right? Just, totally abusive. We got states right now that want to enact child labor laws again. I mean, all of that stuff that came out of the injustice of that era, the corruption. We're going to see massive corruption problems in the next 4 years.
So, Barbara,
and we should get ready.
So, Barbara, we see this. We see that we're going to be in a struggle domestically. Yes. Certainly, African Americans have a greater sensitivity to the idea of what it means to lose a strong central government and to watch power returned to the states. So much of our history is tied to the idea that we need to save the union. And then when we save it, build a more perfect union. That's really who we are. The question I have for you, beyond the domestic struggle that we will definitely be in for the next 4 years with Trump and all of his allies, we're now hearing something about the expansion of the American empire. Somewhere I heard, I'm not going to quote this specifically, the more you tell a lie, the more people begin to believe it, and you begin to wish certain things into the ether that begin to take root. There's this talk about Greenland, and this talk about Canada, and this talk about seizing the Panama Canal. Barbara Arnwine, how outrageous is it now? But how much of a serious conversation could it be the more we hear it?
It's really bad. You heard what Honduras said, that they're willing to shut down the U.S. base there if they start mass deportating people from Honduras back to Honduras, that they're going to shut down the U.S. military base. Listen, there are so many issues here. What's the Panama Canal about? Talk about, say, Elon Musk, okay? What's the Greenland about? Talk about some Putin. What's the Canadian thing about? That's just pure nonsense. Some of this is just a madman. You got to recognize, Jesse. I mean, I'm not even going to try to rationalize some of this madness. I mean, it's just not irrational. I mean, the Panama Canal, I get, because people are upset about, having to pay fees, and they got all these other issues with the canal. And we know that Greenland is a strategic, vantage point for Europe, and it also is very strategic to the preventing an invasion from Russia through those waterways. So we got to understand, folks, that there's some rationale, but then some of it's just stupid. I mean, some of this is this man's brain is a little scattered.
Some of it, I think, also could be laying the foundation for what could be coming next. In that, for example, the Panama Canal, if you think about it geopolitically, it's about the Orient having a shortcut into the Americas for their goods. So when Trump talks about Canada, when he talks about China, when he talks about the Far East being able to get its projects in the West, these shipped and containers have to go all the way around South America, and the costs associated with that, if the Panama Canal is not controlled better from their perspective. Hence their tariffs. They're playing a very tough negotiation game. The other thing is, Panama Canal is that narrow part where all of the immigrants come north. And I want to talk about that, because I see the relationship between Panama and what Trump may be trying to do by saying we're going to stop the border crossings right here so it never makes it to the American border. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. When we come forward, we're going to hear from attorney Barbara Arnwine, who's going to answer these questions, the ones we just raised, and she'll take us to the end of the program.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
The following is not a contest and is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways for the purpose of soliciting sales of vacation ownership. For complete details, please visit fvgradio.com. If you want a complimentary stay in Cancun at a luxury resort, then Family Vacation Getaways may have your ticket to paradise. We're giving away a 5-day and 4-night stay to the first qualified 50 callers who can name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. An animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. Do you know it? Call now, 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431. You may also be eligible for an exciting bonus vacation to Orlando, Florida for just $398. And don't worry about anything ruining your plans. We can extend your travel up to 18 months. Name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird, and you may be eligible to get a complimentary Cancun resort stay and an optional bonus vacation to Orlando for just $398. What are you waiting for? Call 800-868-6431. Again, call 800-868-6431 and give us your answer.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on a digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. The Live Your Life organization mentors young women, helping them break negative mindsets and see beyond their surroundings. Through career exposure and hands-on training, they're encouraged to think big, stay focused, and make positive choices. Founded by Nikisha Mama Boo Smith, who transformed her life to become a community leader. Live Your Life is changing lives, but they need your help. They're raising funds to keep their new building open and expand their programs. Your donations will support food, clothes, hygiene products, and holiday giveaways. Visit liveyourlife.org liveyourlife32.com. That's liveyourlife32.com to help today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
That was another way. I would smoke once an hour. That didn't work either. All that would happen at some point of the day, I would end up doubling up. Other ways that I tried to quit was I stopped buying cigarettes totally. But if I took 3 puffs off of 15 friends, those didn't count because they weren't my cigarettes and they weren't full cigarettes. I went through a lot.
Every attempt is part of your story to quit for good. Visit Kick It California today at kickitca.org.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome back to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest is attorney Barbara Arnwine. She's going to be on the front line for the next 4 years fighting a major fight. We'll be right behind you, Barbara. Go ahead. We see you. Barbara has committed to be a regular guest on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, and I'm very excited about that. Barbara, there's a sense of doom and gloom. I mean, I was sad today to see Joe Biden giving his final speeches, and I didn't develop a full appreciation for just how calm the last 4 years has been. In fact, I know when my hair started growing back, right, that things calmed down, right? But now I'm like, what is going on here? Why do I feel this anxiety? Why do I feel this pressure? Why do I feel like everything you've ever fought for, that Martin Luther King Jr. ever fought for, that my father ever fought for, that cadres of men and women have fought for and died for, have been lynched for, have been jailed for, is at stake if, in fact, we do not have an eternal vigilance against what we are about to experience.
We've been here before, folks. That's the first thing I want Black people to remember. Our foreparents faced a hell of a lot worse. Because when I was talking about that redemption era, what else was it characterized by? Lynching.
That's right.
That's the major lynching period. And remember that the lynching covers up. You don't hear about all the massacres of Black people that happened during that period. All the Black accomplishments that people fought for that were wiped out. I don't want people to get confused that, that somehow this is the worst that our people have ever faced. This is not the worst. And what did they do that made them get through? They had confidence in the righteousness of their cause. They knew that they were entitled to be treated humanly, with dignity, and with equality. And they never gave up on that dream. The other thing they did was that they fought. They didn't sit back and say, as I've heard people talk about, oh, I'm going to check out. Really? Are you kidding? If Harriet Tubman had checked out, would there ever have been a civil war if others had? If Mary McLeod Bethune had checked out, would we ever have built, all these amazing, schools and done so much accomplishment? It is our persistence. It is our perseverance. It is our determination that wins, not our, when I get anxiety, I say I got to be more vigilant. When I get tired, I say I got to get more inspired. When I get, I just think people, this is a period where they would be happy if we all said, oh, we ain't going to do nothing. Have you seen the new reports, Jesse, about the election that's coming out now? The new data that's coming out?
Sure.
Well, I just want to point out to everybody that I'm one of the people who have been saying that the real story of the 2024 election is the millions of people who didn't vote. The news data, because we won't know anything until we get these total voter data files for the states, but what we're seeing already from studies is that it's appearing that I was correct. I said that at least 11 million people sat home and did not vote. The new data says that's correct. That is higher than what I said.
So we lost by the margin.
Right.
That we were not engaged or that we disconnected or stepped out of the process.
Yes. We allowed ourselves to be discouraged, to be pranked, to be punked, all of this stuff by people being told that their vote didn't matter, that it didn't matter, that other people were going to turn out and vote for you. I mean, people believe that stuff. They believe she ain't black, all this madness. They believe that the parties are the same. All that stuff that was pumped into our communities with billions and millions and millions of dollars. People believe that. And I want folks to be very clear that Donald Trump, the new data tells us he did not attract new voters. He just turned out his regular base. It was the Democratic base that didn't turn out. That accounts for that difference. If the Democratic base had turned out in accordance with their potential, this would have been a total landslide the other way. It wasn't that they went over to Trump, they just didn't vote.
Barbara, I'm not going to put all that Democratic base on black people now, because
no. I'm not
80% of black men
at all.
80% of black men and more than, I think, 87% of black women voted for Donald Trump.
No, 92% of black women.
Where did white women go, Barbara? Where did white women go? I mean, this campaign was abortion.
And white men, all of them. Listen, I don't let anybody off. We can't get to a true multiracial, just and free multiracial society unless everybody does their part. So I don't let any group off. I don't let young, I don't let old, I don't let nobody off. And I want it to be very clear that there are many more voters who are white than there are people of color. Mm-hmm. And so we got to be very clear about that, and that it was a failure of all these communities. And I don't want, I got very angry, Jesse, when people were running around talking about black men aren't going to vote, black men. I was like, are you kidding me? That's not the correct focus. What you need to be saying is why you want to make sure people vote.
Let me share this
all people.
Let me share this with you. I think that sometimes when we think about Dr. King's life and his focus, that we don't give him the credit that he absolutely deserves for where you are in your thinking, meaning you, Barbara Arnwine, in your space in 2025. And I say that because Martin Luther King Jr. starts with the end goal. He starts with our human rights, both from the Declaration of Independence and what they became in the Constitution. Dr. King understood the popular vote. He understood the Electoral College, maybe in a way that Stokely Carmichael didn't, or maybe even in a way that Malcolm didn't. I'm not saying that these leaders did not evolve to a more universal sense and purpose of all of humanity. What I'm saying is Dr. King understood the 50 states.
Yes.
He understood the counties.
Yes.
He understood that the rhetoric that he used and the words that he used and the spirit of his approach mattered on election day.
Yes.
That it mattered to the Congress, that it mattered to the Senate, that it mattered to the voice that might occupy a character-filled seat in the presidency, in the Oval Office of the nation. He understood that. And he never lost sight of that. If the goal is 270 electoral votes, if the goal is to win, then our rhetoric also has to reflect what Jesse Jackson said. The farmer, the poor, William Barber, the white poverty, Bobby Kennedy, Appalachia, that rural Georgia and Atlanta matter, that rural Illinois and Chicago matter, that beyond Pittsburgh and Philadelphia is rural Pennsylvania.
Yes.
These farmers, these people matter to the American equation. Your final thoughts on Martin Luther King Jr. and what this day and hour means. We have 2 minutes before we go forward.
I think Dr. King was not only prescient, not only
Barbara, I need you to turn your microphone down just a little bit, your speaker down on your computer, because there's just a little bit of echo.
Okay, hold on.
But it's okay. You can keep talking because we're still on the air.
Okay, how's that?
Much better.
Ooh, and I can barely hear. Okay. I was just saying that Dr. King was so prescient. But at the other time, he was also relatable. You know, what I love about your dad, what I love about you, what I love about so many people is the real skill of being a good leader. Is you got to be able to talk to people. And you got to make sure that everyone feels that they have a stake in the game.
Yes.
You can't just say, we only care about swing states. You can't just say we only are going to focus on one issue or the other. You got to really make every person. And that's one thing King did. When he said, I have a dream, he knew that everybody dreamed and everybody has a dream. When he talked about universal, suffrage, he was talking about for everybody. When he walked in with Cesar Chavez and others, he did that because he understood that everybody needs to be part of it. And I'm saying to everyone listening that you never count out anybody. Count everybody in and really work on bridging and making sure everybody understands their stake. You have no idea how many people I spoke to over the last, year. And a lot of people just had horrible misinformation. A lot of people were discouraged. A lot of people just needed to be, be told that the most important thing, that they are important, that they count. And so I just think that we have a connection issue that we got to work on for all of us. And let me be clear, I'm not talking about partisan. I'm talking about nonpartisan. But listen, these folks are going to be coming out at us with mass deportations. They're already spreading hate. Have you seen so many of these hate stories where folks are saying, I can't wait to January 20th. Y'all gonna pay, all this hate. So I want, us to understand that in the face of that, we got to build even more community. We got to build even more alliances. We're going to have to fight even more. I intend to be on that front line fighting against mass deportations. I intend to be on that front line fighting for women's rights. I intend to be on that front line fighting for racial justice.
Barbara, I look forward
to be there. And
Barbara,
I just want folks to know that we all got to be
Barbara,
there.
we look forward to having you on our show in the future. I've got the hard stop now, but I'm grateful to Barbara Arnwine. She is going to be our leader going into 2025. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.